when it is loaded, it is listed there. I'm going to show you in a moment what I mean by it. So in bin, you see we have these commands here. I'm not sure if we actually have, okay, so mcopy is there. There we go. We have yum, which we use to install packets. Not sure if we have anything familiar here. We have actually, there we go. We have ls. So you see, these are the programs that are, these are the sort of programs that are stored here. If we go ahead and type in ls, oh no, sorry, go back, and then let's go into dev. And if we do ls here, you will see that this is actually our hardware. I'm sure that you can recognize some of the devices from the list without much thinking, but if I go up, this one probably won't be an obvious one. This is actually my CD-ROM drive. This is where I would insert a CD, basically in a physical sense, in the physical world. If I go ahead and I'm gonna just go ahead and actually go back, clear the screen, and do, oops, not the LL, I'm just going to do LS here. Excellent. So now we have the home directory. The home directory is a place where all the where all the users have their own home directories, where they store their own files and so on. Right next to it, you have lib64, and if you take a look down below, there is actually lib. So you have lib64 for 64-bit systems. Here, you would generally store libraries. Libraries that are to be used, that are linked, and they would be stored either in this folder, lib64, or just lib. Keep in mind that they can also be stored here within this folder. There's like usr/local/libraries, something of a kind. Don't hold my word for it. I will show you in a moment. There you can also find local and shared libraries. But we're going to get to that in a moment. From here we have mnt. What is a directory mnt? Well, MNT is a mount point for devices. So if you mount a disk or something of a kind, it doesn't need to, I mean, I'm not generally talking about a USB, a disk that you would plug in with a USB or something of a kind. In the MNT folder, that's the temporary mounting place for drives in general, and devices and drives in general. You would be able to mount a drive, I don't know, God knows where in the world, and basically be able to access it from Linux, no problems. Actually, it's quite easy. There isn't that much to it. It's actually just one single line where you use the mount command and then you specify the file system type. So it can be in a Windows NTFS, in uh, Linux there is a wide variety of them, usually XF4, but we have used XFS here. You would need to specify that, and then you would mount it. And if we go into MNT, it should be empty. Not sure. I don't think I have mounted up anything. Yep, there we go. It is completely empty. However, if you were to mount something, you would have a link here, or well, you would have a file here basically where you could go and access that device, browse its file system, as long as you have the support for it. By support, I mean that you support, that your computer supports uh, the format of the disk. So as I said, it could be NTFS for Windows, or XFS, or ext4, ext3. It could be exFAT or whatever. exFAT is also it's pretty much like ext4. You would use FAT32 or exFAT on your USB flash drives or something of a kind. Let's go ahead and clear this. And oops, let's actually go back and do ls once more. Right next to the MNT, you have a file proc. You have a directory proc. And within the directory proc, you have the kernel system, you have the kernel that is being monitored and where the information is being written. So within this, again, virtual directory, such information is written, and here Linux truly sticks to the dogma, everything is a file. So you got this one for IO, input output mem, interrupts for threads if I'm not mistaken, drivers, etc. All these files are accessible to you and you can monitor them. Sometimes they're used for troubleshooting, but I mean, not sometimes, they are used for troubleshooting as well. If I do ls again and we continue on, now we have, I'm gonna go ahead and skip skip SRV for now. There is a TMP, that's where the temporary folders go, and var is quite important to you. var is extremely important to you. That is where most of the web servers are located. That actually where most of the websites are located, not web servers. So let's say you made a web server, you brought it up, and if I go ahead and type in cd var www, press enter. Oh, no such file. Oh, okay, I didn't actually create anything of a kind here, but it doesn't really matter. If I go into var alone and I do ls, I have access to the log files from here. That's one thing, but also there would be a folder here called www where you would store your websites. Any sort of websites could be stored there pretty much, and anybody accessing them from outside would actually access them from this folder on the net by typing in the IP address. Apache would know in which folder to look for your website. Also, if we go into var, basically this is variables. So if we go into log, var variables, so if we go into, come on, where am I? pwd, I am in var. I do not believe that I can access everything from my regular user, but it doesn't really matter. I just want to show you that the log files do exist and where they actually are. So for current events in the system, you can take a look at the messages, and you see you have several dates. Some of them have been packed. Down below, let's see, what else do we got? We got Samba, we got some things that we can recognize. QEMU, cups, cron jobs, etc. I will go through some of these things in great detail with you, but the most obvious thing that you will be able to understand what it actually is vbox guest additions .log. Let's not sure if it's gonna allow me to take a look at it. We could check with the ll command to see who owns the file, but let's just see if we can actually do it. We can. Excellent. So here you see you can read the log file for VirtualBox guest additions, and obviously it failed in my case, but my main objective was to only get a full screen, and that is what I got. There are some other things that the guest additions can be used for or are used for, but I don't really need that at this point of time. Now I'm gonna leave this, go back a step, one more step back, do ls again. Down below we have boot. Boot pretty much contains everything that the system needs to boot, all the files needed to boot the system. You can have a look here, and there are a lot of things. This is the place from where the Linux kernel is loaded up. Let's go back. ls. Excellent. So Etsy is something where you will spend a good amount of your days in life if you become a network administrator, Linux network administrator. Etsy is a place where most programs hold their configuration files, where you will go to change things, to reconfigure them, to configure them, to take important information out, and usually a large amount of your troubleshooting will involve doing some sort of changes in the Etsy. Again, we have just libs, and then we have media. Media is a mounting point for mounting temporary file systems. By temporary file systems, I'm referring to well, they're not temporary file systems. That would be a complete error on my behalf. They're just temporary devices that you would plug in and then plug out. No big deal. It's like plugging in a USB drive or a hard disk via USB or something of a kind. That's basically media. Opt, well, Opt is basically a place where the system tends to install some sort of